This is the day we've been given. Let us rejoice and be glad. Buenos dias. I am the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, your assistant minister. Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, a liberal religious community where love works. Our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and build a more just world. Together, we dare to practice and embody the beloved community where all are welcome.
And I'm Tim Atkins, your Director of Lifespan Religious Education. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, and whatever your gender identity, beliefs, or immigration status, you are welcome here.
Our lay pastoral visitors work closely with the ministers to support the pastoral ministries of this congregation. Please know that if you have a pastoral need or concern, there'll be a pastoral visitor at the Joys and Sorrows candles. For a few minutes, it will be Ann Meyer, and Ann will also be at the Joys and Sorrows table after service.
I'd like to draw your attention to the insert in your order of celebration. This is a vital and engaged religious community. Please review these inserts and see how you might become more deeply engaged in the work of this congregation. A special welcome to those of us joining our service online, whether in the moment or catching up with us later. We're glad to have you with us. If you're new to Cedar Lane, we have a small gift for you. Please rise or raise your hand as you are comfortable and willing so we may recognize and welcome you.
All are invited to stay after the service today to enjoy coffee and conversation. Visitors, members, and friends, a reminder, if you choose to use a yellow mug, our friendly Cedar Laners will greet you, because at Cedar Lane, yellow means hello.
A few special announcements. Join us after this Sunday service for a light lunch and then our annual congregational meeting at noon. Who's excited for the congregational meeting?
Woo!
Woo! We'll review the past year, elect new board trustees and officers, and approve next year's budget, reconsider the most recent loan from the endowment, and recognize our executive director, Sarah Deschler, who is retiring at the end of June. Next week begins our Tapestry multi-generational religious education program. Tapestry will span the next 3 Sundays with classes for all ages around our theme of the environment. It starts after the worship service, and classes will run for about an hour. Stop by the religious education table in the lounge after the service to learn more about our course offerings. And don't forget about our kickoff picnic next Sunday.
We're excited to share that the Reverend Dr. William Barber will be speaking at Cedar Lane next Sunday, June 10th at 6 p.m. right here. This is the first time ever that he has been in Montgomery County. Dr. Barber will be leading the mass meeting for the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, with the Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, area clergy, and musicians. I hope that everyone is here. Now please turn and greet your neighbors and maybe invite them to come next Sunday.
Good morning. I'm still on microphone. Good morning.
Good morning, Harvey. Good to see you. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, David. Good to see you.
I invite us all to take these wonderful greetings, these sounds of joy, into our hearts as we begin to center ourselves for worship with the sounds of our prelude. Come, let us worship. So if you don't believe in magic, or if you've never believed in magic, then today you will be made to be believers, because magic is happening in the back of this room right now. All of the flowers that have been brought in by many people that have come from many places are being arranged by the flower team. Can we please give these magic makers a hand? Now, they make magic for us every single week that graces our altar. And they're doing it for us here for this special day, which is about beauty and resistance and surviving and thriving. Thank you, team. Enter into the communion of flowers. Enter with joyful hearts. Enter with reverent thoughts.
It has taken long months beneath cold ground for these flowers to prepare new blooming.
It has taken each of us long times of growth through sorrow and joy to prepare for our living now.
The blooming season is short. The flowers only stay a brief time. We are travelers upon the earth, travelers through all to brief lifetimes.
Therefore, let our moments be bountiful. Let us rejoice in our unique colors, aromas, and sounds. Let us celebrate together in love, that as we travel away, we take with us the memory of golden hours together among flowers. I invite you to please rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 8 in our gray hymnals, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, as the flower processional commences.
As Regina Carrera and Luke Dull come forward to kindle the chalice, symbol of our shared faith, please rise in body and/or in spirit to speak the chalice lighting words printed in your order of celebration. We kindle the chalice to remind us of the light that brightens all of our lives. We gather many different flowers to remind us of the unique contribution each person makes to our shared faith. As we gather here, we remind ourselves that we, like the flowers, are many. We, like the light, are one. In our beloved community, may we, though many, be one in spirit and in service. Please be seated. Now, Don Bliss will come forward to speak about the Building Our Vision campaign.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the Combined Campaign Steering Committee and visiting stewards, I want to thank those of you who have already made pledges of financial commitment to the annual campaign and to the capital campaign, helping to build our vision. This is the first ever Cedar Lane has launched a combined campaign, and it's been a learning experience for all of us. I would also like to recognize the dedication and work of our team. Will members of the steering committee and visiting stewards please rise? Thank you. Now, will those of you who have said yes and been visited please rise and remain standing? Thank you. And will those of you who have pledged to the annual campaign please rise? Thank you all so much for your support of this important community. The success of our collective work depends upon your generosity. Thank you. You can all be seated as you have. With the next fiscal year fast approaching, we are today focusing on the annual campaign. As of today, we've raised $684,701. That's 73% of our goal of $935,000. With only 46% of Cedar Lane families, that's less than half of Cedar Lane families participating. Most of you know that pledges constitute at least 75% of our operating revenue. For the capital campaign, we have raised $3,128,797 with only 23% of Cedar Lane families participating thus far. Now, if 100% of our congregation participates, we can surpass our goal to transform our space to nurture community, as we all voted to do at last year's congregational meeting. With many new members and increasing diversity, Cedar Lane is on a roll. We are reaching out to the broader community at a time of cultural anxiety. Now is the time to come together as that beloved community that we all espouse to be, to provide the financial resources to build our vision, to sustain and enhance our mission, to explore the eternal, nurture community, and build a more just world. For those of you who have not yet pledged, we ask that you take an annual pledge card and turn it in today or as soon as possible. The cards are included in your order of celebration. We ask that you increase or sustain your past contributions. If you've not pledged before, take a look at the opposite side of the card for guidance. With your help, we can avoid program and staff reductions at a time when Cedar Lane's voice is most needed. For 67 years, we have been a leading congregation in our movement. Cedar Lane is changing, just as our movement is changing. Now, for some of you out there who expect a Mark Twain quote, okay, here it goes. Here's a Mark Twain quote. Quote, What then is the true gospel of consistency? Change. Change is the law of our being. We cannot be consistent if we're all stuck in a rut, end quote. Now, in a UU congregation, we are the ones who manage the pace of change and make the key policy decisions. We, the congregation, are the ones who provide the financial support and approve the operating budget. Our steering committee and visiting stewards have sought to meet with every Cedar Lane member and friend, not simply to raise money. We embrace this approach to get to know each other and to understand better the aspirations and the concerns of each of you for Cedar Lane. When you're contacted for a meeting on the capital campaign, please say yes. Whether or not you decide to participate, we want to hear from you, and we will share with you what we have learned. We have heard your many voices, and not surprisingly for this congregation, there are different points of view. We have concerns and aspirations that we as a community can work to address. We bring different experiences, resources, opinions, and skills to our congregation, but we share a passion for and commitment to improve the lives of others. And this is a good thing because it means we're all in this together. We can only build our vision if we stretch a bit together. Now, Nancy and I have been members of Cedar Lane for over 35 years, in times of sorrow and in times of joy. In Nancy's work on the facilities team for many years, she knows all too well our neglect of this beautiful building and grounds bequeathed to us by our founding members. It has been too long, more than 20 years since the capital campaign. So for us, Nancy and I, we've made it a once-in-a-lifetime, unprecedented commitment to the operating and capital campaigns to ensure that the good work of this imperfect institution continues in the coming year and to upgrade our facilities to meet our changing and expanding mission in the community at large. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? 20 years from now? So for those of you who have made your annual pledge, I thank you in advance. For those of you who are about to make your annual pledge, I thank you in advance. Your support this week is critical as we begin the next fiscal year on July 1st, less than a month from now, with a new operating budget. You will continue to hear about our capital campaign in the near future. But for today, we're counting on you to keep our operations running smoothly and efficiently. Feel free to corner one of us after the service if you would like to discuss this some more. And please turn in those pledge cards. There is so much that we are called to pay attention to, so much which is so important for us to do together. May you feel good about your generosity, and may we continue the miracle that is Cedar Lane. Thank you very much.
Don, Regina, Mel, thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you, team, for all of the work you have done. What you've done is deep ministry. Those conversations that were had in the library, that were had in kitchens and living rooms, knit this community together in a way that it hasn't been so tightly woven in a long time. Thank you. Your ministry is a blessing, and thank you to all who said yes to the blessing of visitors.
Come, wanderer, come, worshiper, come with your joys, your broken heart, your wholeness, and your loneliness. We gather as a single community in sacred space to meet the wonders and challenges life offers us all. Let us enter this time to gather strength and inspiration as we bear witness to the joys and sorrows in our community. When I hold up my arms, I invite you to say, "We hold you in our hearts." We hold you in our hearts. If you are living through the small and extraordinary milestones of life, we hold you in our hearts. If parenting is your spiritual practice, we hold you in our hearts. If you live with or care for someone with grief or chronic pain, if you are struggling with illnesses, seen and unseen, with mental illness or addictions, we hold you in our hearts. If you have suffered abuse or injustice, we hold you in our hearts. We especially hold in our hearts the family of Sandy Pike, who passed away quite suddenly this past week. Cards can be mailed to the family, and the address was included in the e-news. Our hearts are also with the Boa family, especially Emily, who's been missing since last week. Please review the press release, which also was included in the e-news, and keep an eye out for her. Please hold Emily and her family in your prayers. We hold you in our hearts. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives are impacted by violence and calamities in our world. We hold you in our hearts. May these friends of ours, our companions in the world, and all that lives unspoken in our hearts be held in the embrace of prayer and the peace that the stillness of silence brings.
I can't help but look at each of these flowers and wonder, this beautiful peach rose here, did someone once cut that rose bush back a little too far? And did it come back anyway? Sometimes our blessings occur even during the worst of times, even after the biggest disappointment or the biggest mistake, and we don't see the blessing, that new bud, that bursting peach rose until long after. And that's why we have community to be beside us as we move through those times when we haven't yet been able to find the blessing to figure out the rose that we will become. So let us enter into a time of silence together. Maybe some of us will count our blessings, the things that are giving us life in this moment right now. And maybe some of us will think about reaching out to another, maybe at coffee hour or at service, to ask for someone to companion us as we await to find out what our blessing is and whom we will become. Let us enter the silence together and know that if you are grieving the loss of a loved one or the anniversary of a loss, you may rise in body or spirit. God of many names, being that expresses through each and every one of us and sometimes shows up as that resilient rose bush, as a smile from a stranger, as a new friend made at coffee hour. You are a blessing, forever expressing in, as, and through our lives. May we recognize you when you bloom. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Our Share the Plate offering today will support the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. At this time of intensifying political, economic, and moral crises, with the lives of the most vulnerable and the spirits of all under attack, people in growing numbers around the country are fighting back for their lives, their communities, and their deepest values. 50 years ago, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called for a Poor People's Campaign to begin a revolution of values in the United States. He and other leaders invited people of all races and religions to unite against the evils of racism, poverty, and militarism. Today, we are reigniting these efforts to unite the poor, the disenfranchised, and the marginalized to transform our nation's political, economic, and moral structures. This isn't a mere commemoration of the work of Dr. King and others from 50 years ago. It is a consecration of a new moral movement to transform the political and moral structures of our society. So the Poor People's Campaign aims to build a broad and deep national movement rooted in the leadership of poor people and those living on the margins, and reflecting the great moral teachings of the various spiritual traditions to unite our nation from the grassroots up. To that end, we will now give and receive an offering to sustain both the mission and ministry of Cedar Lane, as well as the mission and work of the Poor People's Campaign. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Well, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. Yeah, it's gone on far too long. Well, it's gone on far too long. Well, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore.
Well, somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on far too long. Well, it's gone on far too long. Hey, it's gone on far too long. Well, somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore.
Well, somebody's poisoning our water, and it's gone on far too long. Yeah, it's gone on far too long. Yeah, it's gone on far too long. Well, somebody's poisoning our water, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Somebody wants to build that wall, and it's gone on far too long. Well, And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore. And we won't be silent anymore.
Thank you, members of the choir and the congregation, for joining in this anthem for the Poor People's Campaign, which has kind of become the rallying song as we have been gathering every Monday for protests, marches, and arrests, which will continue. In fact, there will be one tomorrow at the Capitol building at 2 o'clock that you are all invited to arrive. And if you feel moved to engage in nonviolent direct action, to be able to join others at St. Mark's Episcopal Church at 10 o'clock to go through the training and the spiritual preparation to be able to then engage in civil disobedience and arrest. And tomorrow and this week's theme is going to be witnessing against the ecological devastation and witnessing for creating a more sustainable green planet. So I hope to see many of you there tomorrow. Our theme today and for this month is blessing. And one of the expectations for a minister, especially and including Unitarian Universalist ministers, is to offer blessings. Something that I've had to get used to when I started in my ministry. The first time I still remember showing up at a church potluck and people turning to me and say, "Would you offer a blessing?" And I thought, what? You mean? No. This was Florida, you see. But we tend to get asked to offer blessings usually before a meal, at meetings here at church or in the community. We bless and dedicate children. We bless marriages. We do animal blessings. We do house blessings. We do all kinds of blessings. And then we get to lead blessings in our services, like backpack blessings, water communion at the beginning of every church year, new member recognition, veterans recognition, and of course, flower communion. Now, even though we as ministers get so many opportunities to bless as part of our roles, in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we recognize that everyone has the capacity to bless as the priesthood and prophethood of all believers, as James Luther Adams once said. Now, this is particularly evident in our ordination and installation services. For example, when I was installed at Cedar Lane as your senior minister over 4 years ago, it included a ritual of blessing through the laying of hands. Now, while the ritual was led by the Reverend Mark Bellatini, everyone present, over 400 people, were invited to participate. The first people to place their hands on me were my family, and then my colleagues followed. But then the whole congregation was invited to rise and then to touch either me or someone closer to me, thereby forming this interconnected web of blessing that pervaded not just the sanctuary and the balcony, but also the other rooms where people were seated. It was a powerful moment, being touched and blessed by all these people, joined together as one body, linking hands and hearts and spirits. What a blessing. I still remember that moment when I felt this surge of energy flow through me, feeling that collective blessing that was bestowed upon me and our ministry. Just thinking about it is giving me goosebumps right now. That is the power of blessing that we, especially as Unitarian Universalists, celebrate and practice as a community. While formal rituals of blessing like these are significant, we also mark important occasions in our lives. That is also a blessing. But the reality is that blessing is very much a part and parcel of the fabric of our everyday lives. Blessing is all around us all the time. We just have to pay attention. For example, blessing is part of our greetings of one another, whether we say good morning or we say namaste, which means I bow to the divine in you. And whether we do this at home or at work or on the street or at church, the same happens, the blessing of one another. And the same is true of our farewells when we say goodbye or wish someone good luck as they prepare for a big test or an exam or start in a new job or something like that. And then in our own lives, there are people and experiences we count as blessings. Our families, for the most part, our friends, our faith community. Those are also blessings sometimes to stretch and love our family members. Our health, our work, the natural world, all these are blessings. Most of these are an acknowledgement of what is already right in front of us, the gifts of our ordinary lives, gifts which are anything but ordinary. And when we pause to recognize the humanity or the divine spark in each other, we strengthen it with our attention, no matter how deeply it has been buried or for how long it has been buried. And when we bless someone, we touch the unborn inherent goodness in them and wish it well. Because everything unborn in us and in the world deserves and needs a blessing. My grandfather taught me that lesson. He believed fervently, passionately all his life that the holy has made all things and that it was up to us to feed and strengthen and release them whenever possible to find and fulfill their meaning and purpose. And he would say to me, to live life as if it were a blessing has little to do with what happens around us or what we encounter in life, and everything to do with what happens within us. It is, he would say, a matter of the heart and an attitude of gratitude. Now, you never met my grandfather. I wish you had. For someone to say that, given the life that he led, the tremendous suffering, pain, and tragedy that he encountered in his life, losing 4 of his children in his lifetime, and also having to deal with the consequences of living by his values and principles, being shunned by his own family and his community, for daring to take the step of getting his sister, who was a child widow at age 12, not only educated to receive a master's in education in 1933, but also be married again to his best friend, and then living his entire career working in tribal areas in India, supporting the rights and the efforts of tribal people, and thereby going against corporate and government interests, and thereby losing out in his own career. To still be able to live with a zest for life and to say that all life is a blessing, that takes real courage and commitment. I don't have that. And I am not by nature somebody who feels very grateful. I have to grow into that mode. But he embodied that throughout his life. So, all life is a blessing. And we need to live life as if it were a blessing. But I've also learned a great deal about blessing from the people I encounter and serve in my ministry. The 20 years that I've been a minister have shown me that any of the stuff of our lives, our joys, our successes, our failures, our loves, our losses, even our sickness and our brokenness, can become the stuff of blessing and service. I have encountered, seen people in the congregations that I have served use anything to bless life. There is such a simple greatness in us all that nothing need be wasted. I have learned that the capacity to bless life is in everybody through the people I have been blessed to serve. That the power of our blessing is not diminished by illness or age. On the contrary, that our blessings become even more powerful as we grow older. They have survived the buffeting of our experiences. We may have traveled a long, hard road to the place where we can remember once again who we are. That we have traveled and remembered gives hope to those we bless. Perhaps in time, they too will remember this place beyond competition and struggle, this place where we belong to one another. Rachel Naomi Remen writes, "A blessing is not something that one person gives another. A blessing is a moment of meeting, a certain kind of relationship in which both people involved remember and acknowledge their true nature and worth and strengthen what is whole in one another. By making a place for wholeness within our relationships, we offer others the opportunity to be whole without shame and become a place of refuge from everything in them and around them that is not genuine. We enable people to remember who they essentially are." And then she continues, "I learned to do this from people who were dying. People who had moved into a more authentic relationship with those around them because only that which is genuine still had meaning for them. These people had to let go of the ways in which they had changed themselves to win approval, and so they made it safe for others to remove their masks as well. In their presence," she says, "I realized that many of the ways I changed myself that had made me smaller. Parts of myself I had judged or set aside were welcomed and even affirmed by those who were dying. I felt the life in me blessed by such people." I can attest to that. Of the many instances when I received those blessings from people who were dying or about to die. 4 years ago, 2 hours before my mother passed away of a sudden heart attack, she called me. Some of you may remember this. She called me to let me know that she loved me and that she loved my family and she wished us well. And 2 hours later, she was gone. I'm remembering Dorothy Young, a beloved 95-year-old member of the UUs of Clearwater, who was hospitalized one day, and I rushed to go see her. And she was not doing well. And I broke down. And I was trying to get the doctor so that they could proceed to engage in heroic measures to save her life. At one point, she grabbed my hand and drew me closer to her and said to me, Abhi. I didn't listen. So she said, Abhi. I looked at her and she said, let it go. Let it go. I love you. There are many, many stories of blessing that blesses my life and my ministry. When we bless and serve life, we move closer to each other and closer to our authentic selves. When people are blessed, they discover that their lives matter, that there is something in them worthy of blessing. And when we bless others, we may discover this same thing about ourselves. Now, for sure, I cannot tell you where your blessings come or flow. Some of you might believe they come from God. Some of you may believe that all blessings are the works of human hands, and waking up is just a luck of the draw. And some of you may believe in something somewhere in the middle or out on the fringes, being good Unitarian Universalists. I do hope, though, that you hold the belief that you are a blessing and that you have the capacity to bless whatever your life circumstance or situation. But it doesn't really matter to me which belief you happen to hold or not. It matters more to me what you intend to do with that belief. It is your spiritual growth and development that interests me more. But only if that growth takes you to new places of being. So if you are satisfied with all the blessings you receive, and that allows you to feel a sense of personal enlightenment, and you don't do anything beyond that, that's not what I'm interested in. Because I want you to think about how you use your blessings to bless others and the world. That is the path to true spiritual growth and enlightenment. Now, I didn't invent that. Ancient spiritual teachers like the Buddha or the Prophet Muhammad or Krishna, you name them, all said the same. So when you leave this place today and return to your busy and harried lives, as we all must, I want you to ask yourself two simple questions. What blessings have I received today, and how shall I bless the world? Now, these are two good questions to ask ourselves as we conclude the pledge campaign, actually. Here's why. Not because the pledge drive is about the budget. It is not, fundamentally at least. A pledge drive is actually about blessing. Blessing the mission of this church with our support, our life energy, blessing the importance of Cedar Lane in our individual lives and in the life of the larger community. And above all, blessing the hope that Cedar Lane can and does represent. So look at it that way as you begin to discern what it is that you wish to offer to bless this community with. Ask yourself the two questions. What blessings have I received today, and how shall I bless the world? Even if the answers seem distant some days and it's hard to think of a blessing because life seems so hard, keep asking those questions. Or if it is hard to think of a way of blessing the world because the world seems to need so much, keep asking those questions. Because if you keep asking those questions, you may actually start finding some answers. What blessings have you received, and how will you bless the world? Remembering how to bless each other in the world is more important now, friends, than ever before. And the solution to all the destructiveness and disrepair that we encounter in this world is not more technical expertise or solutions, but the capacity to befriend and beloved life. So may we each be blessed and be a blessing. And may we live into our blessing and live our blessing out into the world where everybody can see. Blessed be. And so we move to another blessing, the flower communion. The flower communion service is a uniquely Unitarian Universalist ritual and celebration created by Czech Unitarian ministers Norbert and Maha Capek. Norbert was born in 1870, what was then called Czechoslovakia. He became a reporter during the First World War, and then he came to the United States, where he served in Army intelligence during the war.
Norbert met and married Maha in New York, and they became Unitarians. They returned to Prague in 1921 and founded a Unitarian church with the help of the American Unitarian Association. Maha was ordained in 1926. The Prague church services consisted of lectures and some music.
The Capeks felt that the lectures alone were kind of dry and boring. They saw the need for some ceremony which would bring people closer together and make them feel like a religious community. And so they created the flower communion service. For this service, everyone was asked to bring a flower to church. And during the service, the congregants would place their flower inside a large vase. Toward the end of the service, each person took a different flower from the vase. The first flower communion was celebrated June 4th, 1923.
When Maha came to the United States in the spring of 1940, she introduced the flower communion to the Unitarians at First Parish Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. During her tour, World War II broke out and Maha was unable to return home. Norbert continued his ministry in Prague, and for preaching against the Nazi occupation, the secret police arrested him and his youngest daughter in 1942. Capek was imprisoned in Dachau, where he died 4 months later.
Before his death, Capek's courage in the face of torture and starvation was a source of inspiration to his fellow prisoners. He organized the flower communion service in the prison. Each prisoner brought what flowers they could find in the camp to service. At the end, they took with them a different flower than the one they brought to symbolize their sense of community. Fortified by his words, they joined together despite the awful conditions in the concentration camp. After the war, survivors testified the Unitarian minister could not have been sent to a place where he was more needed.
Norbert Capek's commitment to justice and freedom lives on in our faith. It lives on in our congregation. It lives on in us. We honor the Reverends Norbert and Maha Capek through this communion today.
Today we bless the flowers with the words of Norbert Capek. All human beings are created in the name of joy and happiness, but thousands of troubles surround us, tormenting us with sadness. If a person cannot see beauty in the world around them, then troubles and sadness tie them down. The beauty of the clouds floating in the sky, the beauty of spring rain, the beauty of flowers, the beauty of friendship and love. May people see the beauty. May true humanity spread out in human hearts. May we all get our daily bread. May people forgive each other their trespasses and not bring each other into temptation through hatred. May peace spread across all the earth. Amen.
Amen. So it is time now for us to share in the flower communion ritual. I ask that as you each in turn approach the communion table, that you do so quietly and reverently, to be awake and present to these flowers before you, to know that these flowers are like us all, unique, mortal, beautiful, even a little quirky. Let these flowers remind us that despite our differentness and our differences, we are one with all that is. May they remind us of the beauty, power, and blessings of community, this community. May they inspire us to recognize our blessings and to share those blessings with each other and with the world. I ask of you to please select a flower different from the one you brought that particularly appeals to you. And as you pick up your chosen flower, noting its particular shape and beauty, please remember to handle it carefully, because it is a simple gift that someone else has brought to you. It represents that person's unique humanity and therefore deserves your kindest touch. And after you take a flower, we invite you to move to the side of the room and towards the back so that the community can form a circle around the sanctuary. So as the choir shares music, let us now share quietly in this beautiful ritual of oneness and love.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I have never aspired to be a fireman or an astronaut or even the president. I have always wanted to be a wildflower. This is what I want, to be free to grow, rejoicing in both sun and rain. And someday, when I grow up, I will look into a mirrored woman. But always.
Go out, get a line.
I invite us to just take a moment as the choir joins this circle of love and caring and community to look at each other, to see in each other the blessings that we are and the blessings that we bring to make this a beloved community. And I share this ancient Hindu blessing. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinamaditam Ma vidvishavahai. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. May all be well. May all be happy. May all be peaceful. May all be fit for excellence. May all be a blessing. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So may it be. Blessed be. And now let us join our hearts and our voices to sing Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working. We are working to be free. It's 10:17. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. And freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without this, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. Sing it loud, sing it proud. We are building free.